Hey guys, welcome back to the Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is Pro-Revenge Story. I worked at a residential care facility for adults with disabilities. The job involved supporting six residents who shared accommodations. It was shift work. During daytime hours, we maintained a ratio of 2 residents per staff member, with one staff member doing an overnight sleep shift. We operated on 4-week rotating schedules. My position was 0.75 FTE, meaning I worked 75% of full-time hours, which came to 57 hours per fortnight. The shifts were challenging, but the compensation made it worthwhile. I was assigned to a house we called Sunrise. Sunrise housed 4 residents and had 7 staff members. Each house had its own supervisor who reported to a district manager overseeing 6 houses, and the district managers reported directly to the CEO. According to company policy, leave requests operated on a first-come, first-served basis, requiring early submission to secure time off. In 2023, I was transferred to Sunrise from a larger facility due to my qualifications and circumstances I'm not at liberty to discuss. I spent my first year getting acquainted with the staff, residents, and house supervisor. There was an obvious clique of 4 staff members who had a pattern during school holidays. 3 would request leave while 1 would conveniently fall sick with a medical certificate covering the same period. They rotated who played the sick role to avoid detection. These individuals were friends outside work who frequently socialized together. Have you noticed how they always managed to get the same time off? Another coworker once whispered to me during a shift change. After a year, our house supervisor became ill. One of the clique members, let's call her Rachel, was appointed acting supervisor, and everything went downhill from there. She attempted to reduce my hours to give her friend more time. During a tense conversation, I firmly stated, "I'm contracted for 57 hours per fortnight, and that's what I expect to work. We need to be flexible with scheduling," she responded dismissively. In January 2024, I submitted leave for the March school holidays. Rachel rejected it, claiming others had already requested that time. Later, I discovered those others were all her clique members. "You understand how it works, a first come, first served," she said with a smirk. In March, I checked the leave calendar for the June holidays. It was completely empty. I submitted my request, only to have it rejected again. Rachel claimed, "Sorry, you were too slow. The others already submitted their requests." The following day, their names mysteriously appeared on the calendar. Come May, I tried for Christmas leave. Same result. This particularly frustrated me as I had family vacation plans. When I approached the district manager, who was also part of their social circle, I was told nothing could be done. At this point, I hadn't taken any leave in 2 years. In January 2025, while the clique was away, we faced a gastroenteritis outbreak across our facilities, leaving us severely short-staffed. All available personnel, including the CEO, were covering shifts. During one shift with the CEO, he noticed my situation. "You've accumulated quite a bit of leave. You should take some time off." "I've tried 3 times in the past year," I explained. "All rejected because others apparently got in first." "Let's fix that right now," he said decisively. "What dates are you looking at? How about 4 weeks over Christmas?" The CEO signed my leave form immediately and updated the calendar. He placed the application in Rachel's mailbox, buried under a stack of papers. That night, during my sleep shift, I made a copy for myself, knowing it might come in handy. In March, I discovered my Christmas leave had vanished from the calendar, replaced by Rachel and her friends. I remained quiet, knowing I had the CEO's signature as backup. In October, after our original supervisor passed away, Rachel was made permanent supervisor by the district manager, subject to a 3-month probation period. When December arrived, Rachel called me on my first leave day. "Where are you?" she demanded. "On approved leave." "I never approved any leave. Get to work immediately." When I arrived, she berated me. "You know we always take 2 weeks during December and January. Consider this a formal warning for insubordination." I worked the shift, then emailed the CEO. At our subsequent meeting, CEO, "Explain what happened," Rachel interrupted. "He took unauthorized leave." "Actually," I interjected, showing my copy of the form, "the CEO approved this in January." The truth unraveled quickly. Rachel had destroyed leave forms and manipulated the calendar. The CEO investigated thoroughly, resulting in Rachel losing her promotion and the clique being separated into different houses. The CEO implemented new leave policies requiring his signature on all requests. 2 weeks later, Rachel was terminated for failing compliance requirements. The next one is an entitled people story. It all started when my dad passed away 3 years ago. He was only 62, and it hit our family hard, especially my mom, who had been with him for almost 40 years. Dad had always been careful with money and had built up a decent nest egg over the years. Nothing crazy, but enough that my mom wouldn't have to worry about finances after he was gone. Dad had used the same lawyer, Mr. Richards, for decades. He handled everything from the purchase of our family home to setting up Dad's will. Mom always described him as stuffy but competent, which seemed like a fair assessment from the few times I'd met him. He had that typical lawyer vibe, always in an expensive suit, spoke in complicated sentences, and had an office that smelled like leather and pretentiousness. After Dad died, Mom naturally went to Mr. Richards to handle the estate. I offered to come with her to the initial meeting, but she insisted she could handle it. "I've been dealing with him for 30 years, honey. I'll be fine." Looking back, I should have insisted harder. About a month after that meeting, I noticed Mom seemed stressed when I called to check in on her. She brushed it off as just paperwork stuff and changed the subject. This happened a few more times until finally, during a Sunday visit, I found her crying at the kitchen table with a stack of papers in front of her. "Mom, what's going on?" I asked, sitting down next to her. She wiped her eyes and looked at me with this defeated expression I'd never seen before. "I think I'm in trouble, honey." Over the next hour, she explained what had been happening. Mr. Richards had informed her that there were complications with Dad's estate. Apparently, there were tax issues that Dad had allegedly been hiding, and if they came to light, the IRS would take everything and possibly pursue criminal charges posthumously, which would affect Mom as his spouse. But Mr. Richards had a solution. For a consulting fee of $25,000, he could make these problems go away. Mom, terrified of losing everything and having Dad's name tarnished, paid him from her emergency savings. A month later, more complications arose. Another $30,000. Then another $40,000 a few weeks after that. Every time the threat was the same: pay up or face financial ruin and public humiliation. "How much have you paid him in total?" I asked, my blood beginning to boil. Mom looked down at her hands. $215,000, she whispered. I nearly fell out of my chair. That was almost half of what Dad had left her. "And he's asking for another $75,000 now," she added. "I don't have it. I'll have to sell the house." That was the breaking point for me. "Don't give him another cent," I said. "This isn't right. Dad was meticulous with his taxes. You know that. This sounds like blackmail." Mom was hesitant to believe Mr. Richards would do something so illegal. After all, he had been their trusted lawyer for decades. But I wasn't convinced. I asked to see all the correspondence she had with him, and what I found made me even more suspicious. There were vague references to tax discrepancies, but no specific details. No actual IRS documents. Nothing concrete that showed any real problems. I did some research and made a few calls to friends who worked in finance and law. None of what Mr. Richards was claiming made sense. The pieces weren't adding up. So I made an appointment with a different lawyer, Miss Patel, who specialized in estate law. I brought all of Mom's documents, and after reviewing everything, she confirmed what I suspected. "This is textbook extortion," Miss Patel said firmly. "There's no evidence of any tax issues. Your father's returns were in perfect order. Mr. Richards is taking advantage of your mother's grief and trust." I was furious, but also relieved to have confirmation. Now we needed to stop him and try to get Mom's money back. Miss Patel suggested we gather evidence before confronting him or going to the authorities. "We need to build a solid case," she explained. "Lawyers like Mr. Richards are good at covering their tracks." We decided on a plan. I would accompany Mom to her next meeting with Mr. Richards, pretending to be helping her secure the $75,000 he was demanding. Miss Patel helped us prepare, and we made sure to have a recording device ready, which was legal in our state for in-person conversations. The day of the meeting, I could tell Mom was nervous. Her hands shook as we walked into his plush office. Mr. Richards seemed surprised to see me, but quickly regained his composure. "Mrs. Thompson, I wasn't expecting company today," he said with a thin smile. "This is my son," Mom replied. "He's helping me with the finances now." Mr. Richards nodded stiffly. "I see. Well, as I explained on the phone, we need to resolve these final issues with the IRS. The $75,000 will cover the remaining tax liability and prevent any further investigation." I decided to play dumb. "Can you explain exactly what these tax issues are? I'd like to understand before we transfer such a large sum." He gave me a patronizing look. "It's quite complicated, but essentially your father had been improperly reporting certain assets. Nothing criminal, just oversights that need correction." "Do you have any documentation from the IRS about these issues?" I asked innocently. "That's not how these matters work," he said, his voice hardening slightly. "We handle these things quietly, before they become official problems. That's what your father paid me for all those years." So there's no actual IRS investigation right now? I pressed. His eyes narrowed. Young man, I've been doing this for 30 years. I know how to protect my clients. Your mother understands the seriousness of the situation. I glanced at Mom, who was looking increasingly uncomfortable. And if we don't pay? I asked. Then I can't protect you anymore, he said, leaning forward. The IRS will come after everything. Your mother will lose the house, the investments, everything your father worked for. Is that what you want? The conversation continued like this for another 20 minutes, with me asking increasingly specific questions, and Mr. Richards becoming more vague and threatening. By the end, we had him on record clearly implying that if we paid him, our problems would disappear, without any actual evidence that these problems existed in the first place. We left without giving him any money, promising to get the funds together soon. As soon as we were in the car, Mom broke down. I can't believe it, she sobbed. All these years we trusted him. Your father trusted him. I hugged her tightly. It's not your fault, Mom. People like him count on that trust. The next day, we took our evidence to Miss Patel, who confirmed we had enough to go to the authorities. She helped us file a complaint with the State Bar Association and the District Attorney's Office. What followed was a whirlwind. The investigation revealed that Mr. Richards had been pulling this same scheme with at least 7 other widows and widowers in the past 5 years. He had extorted nearly $1.5 million in total, preying on vulnerable people who trusted him during their darkest moments. The case against him was solid, especially with our recording and the pattern of behavior established with other victims. When confronted with the evidence, 2 of his former assistants came forward with additional information about his schemes, hoping to avoid being implicated themselves. Mr. Richards was disbarred and charged with multiple counts of fraud, extortion, and professional misconduct. He tried to plea bargain, but the judge wasn't having it. Given the number of victims and the calculated nature of his crimes, he was sentenced to 12 years in prison. As for Mom's money, we were able to recover about $180,000 of it through the legal process. His assets were frozen and liquidated to repay his victims. It wasn't everything, but it was something. The whole ordeal took about 18 months from when I discovered what was happening to when Mr. Richards was sentenced. During that time, I watched my mom transform from a victim back into the strong woman I'd always known. She became an advocate, connecting with the other victims and even speaking at a conference about elder fraud. Your father would be proud of us, she told me after the sentencing. He always said you should stand up to bullies. I nodded, thinking about how Dad had always taught me to do what's right, even when it's hard. He would be prouder of you, Mom. You're the one who had the courage to come forward. She smiled, and for the first time in a long time, it reached her eyes. Maybe. But I couldn't have done it without you. As we walked out of the courthouse that day, I realized something important. The money had mattered, yes, but what mattered more was that we had stopped someone who was hurting people. Mr. Richards had counted on shame and fear keeping his victims quiet. He never expected someone to fight back. Sometimes I think about him sitting in his prison cell wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of his fancy suits, and I don't feel bad at all. He betrayed his profession, betrayed people's trust, and caused real harm to families like mine who were already suffering. 12 years doesn't seem long enough. Mom is doing well now. She still lives in our family home and has become quite the social butterfly in her retirement community. She tells me she sleeps better knowing that Mr. Richards can't hurt anyone else. As for me, I've learned to be more skeptical, to ask more questions, and to trust my instincts when something doesn't feel right. But most importantly, I've learned that standing up to corruption, no matter how powerful the person is always worth it. So if you're reading this and facing something similar, don't stay silent. Speak up, fight back. You might just save not only yourself but others who don't yet have the strength to stand up for themselves. The next one is a malicious compliance story. About 15 years ago, I was almost 20 and in my country's equivalent of a trade school for electricians. One of our teachers, electronic circuits class, had a kinda annoying catchphrase for every question students had. No problems, just look in your textbook. He had already mentally checked out since he got a way better job lined up for next semester, so he pretty much only read stuff from the textbook and then switched to the textbook's practical exercises, where we had a breadboard and, working in pairs, inserted resistors, capacitors, and other components in it. All in all, not the worst teacher we had, but this one incident made his class very memorable. On the third class we had with that teacher, first one was introduction, second one was how to read resistor color codes. He said his catchphrase no less than 5 times per class. My friend showed me a glaring mistake in the textbook's practical exercise. It was something very simple, placing 3 resistors in series, measuring the current produced with a 24V DC power supply, and comparing to the value we had calculated. The first two exercises were okay, but in the third one, the values for all resistors were way too low, like 3 orders of magnitude low. Somebody meant to write 10K0, 10 Zarazond O, but typed 10O instead for every single resistor in that exercise. For people who are not very familiar with electronics, Ohm's law dictate that for a constant voltage supply, current gets higher as resistances get lower. Voltage equals sign resistance X current, or V equals sign RXI, which can also be written as I equals sign VR. Joule's law dictate that more power, which in a resistor's case would be dissipated as heat, is supplied the higher is the current. Power equals sign resistance X current 2, or P equals sign RXI2. Resistors have a power rating measured in watts, and when the rating is exceeded, they start to produce smoke and/or fire. The power rating for the resistors we were using was 0.25 W. When resistors are placed in series, their total value is added. In this example, 3 10-ohm resistors would have a total resistance of 30 ohm. If we use the previous formulas, we get a value of 0.8A for current and 19.2 W for power, or almost 77 times the power rating of the resistors. If the 10K resistors were used, we'd have 0.8 mA for current and 19.2 MW for power, well within the power rating of the resistors. My friend, I, and a few other students tried to ask the teacher if those values were correct, and his answer, to no one's surprise, was, "No problems, just look in your textbook." I tried to argue that the textbook was plain wrong, and he shut me down saying how way smarter people than him and I wrote the textbook, so we should just follow it. So everyone, some more reluctantly than others, placed the resistors in the breadboard, connected the power supply, and waited for his instruction to turn it on, as has been for the first 2 exercises without incident. Then he said to turn on the power supply, without even looking in the textbook. At first everything seemed fine, and some people started to get their multimeters. A few seconds later, a girl screamed, "Fire," but it was really only smoke. A few seconds later, and now we had small fires all over the lab and people freaking out. Nothing spectacular, and they died down a few seconds later, but enough to make most of the 30 people scream and panic, while the smell of burnt plastic from 15 breadboards and burnt ceramic from 45 resistors made the air pretty much unbreathable. To his credit, the teacher engaged the lab's circuit breaker pretty fast and evacuated the room so no one breathed potentially toxic fumes. Since I was expecting it, I was more annoyed than scared, unlike some of the more sensitive people who were crying, and told the teacher, who was looking at the empty lab as if he was seeing ghosts, "There seems to be a problem. Should you look in the textbook now?" He gave a nervous laughter and said, "Maybe you're smarter than the people who wrote it." The screaming attracted a more experienced teacher who, after making sure everyone was okay, just couldn't stop laughing at our teacher. He did keep using his catchphrase, "No problems, just look in your textbook," until the end of the semester, but he was now also looking in the textbook himself and spotted a few glaring mistakes made by those intelligent people. For some reason, he didn't seem to like the nickname we gave him when he heard someone saying in the hallway, "Next is Textbook Idiots class." The next one is an entitled people story. So a few years back, I had a couple of businesses. One where I was a virtual assistant doing graphic design, websites, marketing, admin, bookkeeping, photo and video editing, social media, resume writing, recruitment, HR, and ops. The list went on. I also had a weddings and event business where I had a photo booth, event hire, and a team of photographers, videographers, and event planners. I'll start with the weddings and events business. I had so many family and friends reach out to me, wanting my photo booth for free for birthdays, engagements, weddings, housewarmings. A piss-up on a Saturday night. Originally, I only offered to do digital only, so there wouldn't be any costs for me being the photos to be printed out, just pics posted with my watermark on my social media page. These were the conditions of using it for free. I would use these freebies to trial props, signs, different backdrops, etc., take photos for social media as well as videos, and see what worked and what didn't. Soon after, though, it got a bit too popular with friends and family, even getting to the point I had more free bookings than paid, and they all thought that digital only just wasn't the same as a regular photo booth, and people really needed the prints to be included. I said sure, if they pay for the paper, which wasn't cheap at all, and they would scoff and say that I should include it at my own cost. I'm a business, you can claim it on tax or small tax business hack, gibberish tip here, and if I really want a good review, or for them to promote my business, I'd provide it. I did end up caving, and they never did end up posting a review or promoted it. Then people wanted me to remove my watermarks on the photos, and if I didn't, they would just crop them out themselves, to which I would happily comment on their posts, reminding them that this photo was taken by Attic Business name here. Then DM them saying, as per the terms you agreed and signed, please be sure to tag us if it just so happens you can't keep the OG size of the photo, and you had to crop it. If it was the person who booked it, they would have to fill out paperwork for it, and if it was a guest of theirs, I would have a big sign saying, if you take a photo in the booth, you agree for it to be shared on my business social media and website, no cropping photos or removing my watermarks. When some friends of friends got married, they would reach out and invite me out for brunch, wanting to catch up, only to tell me they are engaged and are planning their engagement and wedding and need advice and the lowdown on all the vendors and who I recommend, who's the cheapest, etc. Now, originally I'd give a little bit of my resources away, refer a few people I enjoyed working with before, venues that I thought they'd enjoy, then, when it came to talk to them about their budgets for what I could offer and provide, only for them to tell me that they've already booked photo, video, and event hire elsewhere. Just feel free, bring along the photo booth as part of your wedding gift to us. They still wanted us to pay $300 to $500 cash as well. And the venue is going to set it all up while their sister, who usually was a bridesmaid MOH, would be their day of coordinator, because why pay me to do something they've already organized? But I'd usually end up having the bride's appointed planner find out that I'm a planner stylist day of or at the hen's party or engagement and would wind up handballing it to me, then claiming the credit of C. Then there are those that wanted me for my services, told me because they have family overseas or their budget on XYZ has blown out that they really can't afford to spend any money on someone to help plan for now, but they saw my work and would love it if I could help them because they have no idea and they would be just so grateful. Some did barter services, not all, but some in OFC I couldn't say no on being a part of their big day. One wedding I did the styling, planning, and coordination. Her hen's party organized a surprise video from her family in Europe who couldn't come and edited it and played it at the wedding dinner. I was up nearly 24 hours that day. Another bride friend of mine, I did her wedding and her hen's do, and on the lead up to both, she would always have meetings, planning stationery, seating plans, food. She was vegan. We'd go to IKEA heaps just to get ideas. I'd show her my supplier's products to give her ideas on things to buy. I bought arbors, fabric specifically for her day, which I could use again, and so much more. Her days were beautiful. This was another very long day as well, and all I got were a set of cheese knives for my efforts. My business cards always disappeared when I tried to leave them out for promo. The absolute worst, though, was a mutual friend of a friend. She was my very first photo booth booking for pre-drinks before a festival when I first started out, and the photos from that day were so great I still used them on my socials and website years later. She had her engagement party, not long after I left my DV marriage because I caught him cheating on me going to sex clubs, seeing swears, seeing a mistress, and being obsessed with a swear. She originally messaged me about 8 months before her big day and asked me for another freebie. She wanted to do digital only again and whatever I could do to make it free because she just opened her own small business and didn't have much money to spend, which I had helped her set up also. I created the website, forms, booking and appointment stuff which she paid me for and gave me free sessions on top. I agreed since she paid for her other business, which was worth way more, and gave me some free beauty treatments in return on top. Now, when I got kicked out of my Marshall home by my abusive ex-husband about 5 months later, I was scrambling to find a place to live, find a lawyer, a full-time job to pay for said divorce lawyer, all while dealing with my POS ex, taunting me and bad-mouthing me all over social media and spreading lies and causing me to be sent to hospital multiple times. Not a grippy sock vacation. My body shut down due to stress and I stopped eating, LOL. Due to my very public humiliation, homelessness, my ex trying to either unalive me or make me unalive myself or die of embarrassment from his posts, stress, and the fact I had bigger things to deal with than a free photo booth booking that I never received any signed forms for, nor even an invitation. I had forgotten about it completely. She knew exactly what was going on, saw all the posts my ex made, even commented on a few, shocked that I was putting him through hell and siding with him. I later found out. She knew I had been in hospital, knew I wasn't doing too well, but didn't even reach out once to see if I was okay or to touch base on her day. Just assumed I'd show up. Instead, she just messaged me on the day 2 hours before asking where TF I was to set up. Now, admittedly, I feel a little bit bad about missing this. However, after COVID, I wasn't trying to get a lot of bookings and didn't have any but hers on the books anyways. She never sent back the forms, despite following up twice and getting empty promises, and after being kicked out and left on the streets, I was dealing with a lot and just wasn't coping, and paperwork for a free gig wasn't top of my list of things. Our mutual friend, who was very supportive, had told her what was going on and told her not to expect me to come, let alone bring the photo booth, because I wasn't doing well in between working 3 different jobs, running the businesses, being in and out of hospital because I wasn't able to eat without vomiting or pain, and my body was shutting down, fighting my demons while being publicly humiliated on social media by my ex, who was feeding everyone lies and trying to ruin what little life I had left. What do you think? Entitled? Or did she have grounds? Anyways, these are just a few of my weddings and event stories, and they don't even mention the professional networking charity events or random strangers who were itching for freebies either. I'll post those later tonight, and maybe I'll post my VA stories for you too. Anyway, thank you for watching.